Hello and welcome to Prepspot. In this video, we are going to know about one of the most debated and impactful topics in global development today, the comparison between China's successful efforts to eradicate extreme poverty and India's ongoing struggles to do the same. This discussion is particularly important for competitive exam aspirants, as it encapsulates a range of issues, from governance models and economic strategies to the challenges of policy implementation and the broader implications for human development. Over the next several minutes, I will provide a comprehensive analysis of how China managed to lift nearly 800 million people out of extreme poverty, while India, despite rapid economic growth and a host of poverty alleviation programs, still has a significant portion of its population living below the international poverty line. We will delve into the historical context, the key concepts and definitions, and the data and figures that help us understand these divergent paths. To begin with, poverty eradication is defined as the process of lifting all individuals above a specific poverty line. For the purpose of international comparisons, the World Bank defines extreme poverty as living on less than $1.90 per day on purchasing power parity (PPP) terms. China and India, both with populations of approximately 1.4 billion, have had their share of extreme poverty challenges. In February 2021, China declared that it had eradicated absolute poverty, meaning that no one in the country lived below its national poverty line, which was set at 2,300 renminbi per year for rural areas, roughly equivalent to $353 per year in 2020 exchange rates, or about $2.08 per day in PPP terms. By contrast, according to World Bank data from 2019, India still had around 10.2% of its population, equating to roughly 138 million people, living below the $1.90 per day threshold. This stark difference is at the heart of our analysis today. The origins of these divergent outcomes lie in the distinct approaches adopted by the two nations over the past few decades. China's journey toward poverty eradication began in the late 1970s with the economic reforms under Deng Xiaoping. These reforms, which shifted the focus towards export-led growth and rural development, laid the groundwork for targeted poverty alleviation programs. Over the years, successive five-year plans set ambitious poverty reduction goals. Under President Xi Jinping, starting in 2012, the Chinese government intensified its efforts with a targeted approach known as targeted poverty alleviation. This strategy involved identifying the poorest households using big data, mobilizing local cadre, and directing substantial investments, over $246 billion from 2013 to 2020, into infrastructure projects, rural industrialization, and direct cash transfers. The centralized governance model in China allowed for swift decision-making and uniform implementation across provinces, enabling the rapid reduction of the poverty rate from over 80% in the 1970s to less than 1% by 2019. By contrast, India's efforts have been shaped by a democratic, federal system where state governments enjoy considerable autonomy, which has resulted in varying levels of success across different regions. India's poverty alleviation initiatives date back to the early post-independence era, with the first five-year plan in 1951 setting the stage for long-term development. Economic liberalization in 1991 spurred rapid growth, and programs such as the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, (MGNREGA), launched in 2005, aimed to provide employment and social security to rural populations. Despite these measures, India's poverty reduction has not been as uniformly successful. In 2019, while India did see a decline in the poverty rate from 45% in 1990 to 10% in 2019, approximately 138 million people continued to live below the international poverty line. This discrepancy can be attributed to several factors, including regional disparities, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and challenges in program implementation. For example, while programs like MGNREGA are intended to offer a safety net, there are persistent issues with corruption and leakage, with estimates suggesting that 20 to 30% of allocated funds may not reach the intended beneficiaries. It is also important to consider the concept of the national poverty line. China's poverty line, set at 2,300 renminbi per year for rural residents, was part of a focused and data-driven effort that enabled rapid progress in poverty alleviation. India, on the other hand, does not have a uniform national poverty line. Poverty thresholds vary by state and are often based on outdated criteria, which complicates efforts to measure and address poverty effectively. Additionally, economic inequality plays a significant role in both countries. China's concentrated focus on targeted poverty alleviation, along with massive investments in rural infrastructure, such as high-speed rail and improved road networks in remote provinces like Guizhou and Yunnan, has been instrumental in narrowing regional disparities. India faces a more complex challenge, with stark differences between states like Kerala, where poverty rates are low, and Bihar or Uttar Pradesh, where rural poverty remains stubbornly high. The economic impact of these strategies is evident in the scale of poverty reduction. China managed to lift approximately 800 million people out of poverty between 1981 and 2019, an achievement that has been celebrated globally and cited as a model of rapid development. In contrast, while India has made considerable progress by lifting about 270 million people out of poverty during the same period, the sheer number of people still living in poverty indicates significant room for improvement. These numbers highlight not only the differences in policy effectiveness, but also the challenges that arise from managing development in a diverse and populous democracy like India. Another crucial aspect of this discussion is the governance model. China's centralized, one-party system allows for the rapid deployment of resources and uniform implementation of policies. Decisions made at the highest levels are executed with minimal bureaucratic delay, and accountability is maintained through a top-down structure. In India, the democratic system, while providing greater accountability and inclusiveness, often results in slower decision-making processes and varied implementation across states. The decentralized nature of India's governance means that states have considerable autonomy, which can be beneficial for tailoring policies to local needs but also creates disparities in the effectiveness of poverty alleviation programs. It is also essential to understand the broader social and political context that influences poverty alleviation efforts. In China, the government's assertive measures, such as forced relocations and environmental modifications, have been both praised for their efficiency and criticized for their human rights implications. Critics argue that while these methods have been effective in reducing poverty, they sometimes come at the cost of social disruption and environmental degradation. In India, public debates often center on issues of corruption, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and the need for greater transparency in the delivery of welfare schemes. The complex interplay of these factors means that poverty reduction is not just an economic issue but also one that is deeply embedded in social, political, and cultural dimensions. For those preparing for competitive exams, it is important to remember key figures and data points. In China, President Xi Jinping has been a central figure in the intensified poverty alleviation campaign, supported by officials such as Liu Yongfu, head of the State Council leading Group Office of Poverty Alleviation and Development. In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has launched various schemes, including the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana (PMJDY) for financial inclusion, alongside MNREGA and other initiatives. Despite these efforts, the Indian experience reveals the challenges of implementing policy in a democratic federal system where corruption and regional disparities can undermine well-intended programs. Let's also touch upon the statistical data that underscores these differences. According to World Bank data, China's poverty rate among its rural population dropped to less than 1% by 2019, while India still reported a poverty rate of 10.2% in 2019, affecting roughly 138 million people. Additionally, China's economic growth, which averaged around 9.5% per year from 1980 to 2019, has played a critical role in its success, whereas India's growth, averaging around 6.7% per year over a similar period, has been slower in translating into poverty reduction for its poorest citizens. These figures highlight the scale and speed of China's transformation compared to the more gradual and uneven progress seen in India. Furthermore, the financial investment in poverty alleviation has been markedly different between the two nations. China invested over $246 billion in poverty reduction initiatives from 2013 to 2020, focusing on infrastructure development, targeted social programs, and the relocation of populations from inhospitable areas. India, meanwhile, allocated a significant budget for schemes like MNREGA, approximately $8 billion annually in 2025, but challenges in the implementation of these programs, including corruption and administrative inefficiencies, have limited their overall effectiveness. In a broader sense, the contrasting experiences of China and India provide valuable lessons for global development. China's success demonstrates how targeted interventions, robust infrastructure investments, and a centralized governance model can lead to rapid poverty eradication. However, it also raises questions about the sustainability and human rights implications of such an approach. India's struggles, while reflective of a more inclusive and democratic process, underscore the need for greater transparency, improved governance, and a reformed approach to delivering welfare benefits. This comparison is particularly relevant in today's global discourse on poverty alleviation, as it challenges policymakers to balance efficiency with equity and to develop solutions that are both effective and just. As we conclude our analysis, it is clear that the divergent outcomes in poverty eradication between China and India are a product of historical legacies, governance models, policy implementation, and socio-economic dynamics. While China's centralized approach has enabled swift and substantial progress, India's democratic system, with its inherent complexities, has resulted in uneven development across regions. For competitive exam aspirants, this topic is a rich case study that encompasses economic theory, public policy, and international development. It illustrates how targeted strategies can lead to dramatic improvements in living standards, and it also highlights the challenges that arise when such strategies are implemented in a diverse and decentralized society. Answer this question in comments. The correct answer will be given hot and pinned. Lastly, we just want to let you know that we are a newly emerging online platform for competitive exams. Creating educational explainer videos like these requires a lot of effort, money, and time. If you like these videos and want us to excel and create videos in all categories of competitive exams, then you can consider supporting us with a one-time donation through the Ko-fi platform and also by becoming a member through Patreon. This will help us create more such informative educational videos in the competitive exams space. So, one last time, subscribe and share this channel with all your friends who are preparing for competitive exams. And also, follow us on social media platforms. The links are given in the About section of the channel and also in the video description. So, see you in the next video.